It's about to hit record. And if I can find it, start summary. And I'm going to share my screen um, uh, and then I'll share my notes thing too. Charles, should we call you Charles or something else?
Yeah, Charles is fine.
Great.
Can I explain this part?
Yeah, let me share my let me share the link real quick before you start here. So and the way I'm sharing the link is going here, making sure these are everyone, and then I grab this, and then I find the chat window. So this is kind of an optional thing. You can either join this live or not. The notes thing. Hey RJ, what's this HackMD thing?
Well, Peter knows all these really cool tools for doing all kinds of neat stuff. And one of them is a tool like this called HackMD. And there's other versions you can get, and they're free. And what they allow you to do is to do collaborative note taking, among other things. So right now, Peter has this going, and it's showing you two different parts of the screen. One is like the markdown part, where it's using the markdown syntax to format what you see on the right side, which is like the more the fine product that you want to show people. But the key thing is the link that Peter's going to put in the chat allows you to also type in the notes for the meeting at the same time as everybody else. So it's a collaborative environment. And this will be kept in place for a couple of days, maybe, or at least a couple hours. But then eventually Peter copies and pastes it and he puts it in the notes. But the nice thing about it is during the call, instead of putting something in the chat, you can put something in the meeting notes that Peter has here. So like if you want to add to the agenda, or if somebody says something about a topic, you can add in your additional insights or whatever you want.
Thanks, RJ.
You're welcome.
And while RJ was typing, you probably saw me typing notes here. So the left side is kind of the source view, and the right side is the pretty view. But the source view is not very much more complicated than if I can grab that middle. It's not very much more complicated. So anybody who's typing is going to type over here, and multiple people can type at the same time, kind of like Google Docs. The reason I use HackMD and the reason I use Obsidian, and I use Obsidian and HackMD together, and I'm going to write another tool here, massive wiki and massive builder. These things all go together to help me manage text files, and especially text files that are marked up with something called Markdown. So if I put dashes or one star here, this will make a bullet list. And then if I put a couple hash things and a space, it'll make a header. And different size headers. There's a big header with 1 and a smaller header with 2, and I can make a even smaller header with 3. So then, as RJ said, this is kind of just the scratch pad I use to take notes together with people during the call. And then there's a website for AI 101 where I'm collecting, session notes and topic notes. So this thing, if I just save it, save it into the right folder on my computer and then press upload, it turns into one of these kind of things. I guess this is not quite an example. This has got some stuff I added later too about this call. And then this website is built with a tool that I wrote in Python called Massive Wiki Builder. And it takes files in a Obsidian. This thing here is Obsidian, which helps you manage text files in Markdown. And I click the save button, and then it sends it up to the cloud and turns it into a website. And all that functionality is for free too. Obsidian I actually paid for because I use it commercially too, but you can, if it's non-commercial use, it's free. So another thing to note, maybe this is a good page here, this particular page I happen to click on. If I go to AI Salon, this one, it's funny, I didn't paste the guts of this over to here. Let me go to this newer one, where I said a quick start on Python programming with ChatGPT. So I wrote this up on AI Salon, but even before I posted it, I copied and pasted it into
Oops. Charles, could you go on mute? Because every time you sneeze or cough, we hear you pretty loud.
Thanks, Charles, but unmute if you need to. As soon as I wrote this up, before I even clicked send, I copied and pasted it into Obsidian, and then I clicked upload. And so then it made a web page. And so now this is going to scroll off of AI 101, but it's always going to be here. And then I put it on the list of Python topic pages and ChatGPT topics, which I guess only have one page on them right now, but this is a work in progress. And by the way, if you know anything about Markdown or Obsidian or Git or GitHub, I'd be happy to give you access, write access to this. This already has a read access. Everybody can read that website. But if you want to help me make this website better, I'm happy to let you do that. And then because this is AI 101 and not Obsidian 101 or Markdown 101, even though that's what I cover a lot, a thing that you can start to use Obsidian for is to keep track of, if you're making a GPT, you can keep track of your custom instructions in an Obsidian vault. Or if you're set up, you can keep track of you can export your ChatGPT conversations, and then I could do more with this. I haven't yet, and I probably won't do a lot. But if I'm ever wondering, when was the last time I talked to ChatGPT about Python? I can just search in all the conversations I've had with ChatGPT and find it. And then Obsidian lets me do extra stuff. Like I could start putting tags in these files to keep track of them, or make a list of all the pages that I want to refer to or something like that.
Pete,
yes.
Do you have a recommendation on where someone new to Obsidian would start? Because what you're showing me seems amazing, and I have no idea how to get to that point. So where would I go to start?
That's a great question, Scott. And and in a way, I don't have a great answer for you. By the way, let me see if this is a useful thing. If I go to AI 101, let me put that website in here, and then maybe on the notes page too, since we're thinking about it. Actually, I do have a good answer for that. so one answer, if I get to the AI 101 site, I keep skittering away from it. If you scroll down, so I am trying to make this homepage useful by listing the conference, the recordings here. And then I'm also setting up topics here. So you can click on Obsidian. I wish this was Obsidian, just Obsidian and not Obsidian Git, but this is the thing I was looking for. I actually have a quick introduction to Obsidian. This is a 30-minute video. I'm going to be doing more of these. You can buy it for up to $1,000 if you want. But no, you could just if you just put 0 here, you can say buy this for $0, and then you'll get a 30-minute intro. It's okay. It's not great. I want to make it shorter ones and more of them, kind of. So. So the first thing you do is you go to obsidian.md, download it. And then the next thing you do is go to YouTube and search for Obsidian how to. Something like that.
Thank you.
This guy here, Nick Milo, is the stuff that he puts out is really good. He's actually he runs a business giving Obsidian, Obsidian. They're not quite Obsidian. They're actually using Obsidian for his linking your thinking thing. But, actually Obsidian Beginners is better than Obsidian How To, now that I think about it. You'll find lots of good stuff. I think another thing to search for, if you RJ mentioned LogSeek. So if you do LogSeek and Obsidian, you'll get videos that compare them. I don't know where I'm getting all those weird shorts, but another couple things to compare to are LogSeek is kind of the open source version of a thing called Roam, which was super popular for a while, and people switch from Roam to Obsidian. So let me type so you could also compare it to Notion. And the reason if I find somebody talking about Notion and Obsidian or LogSeek and Obsidian, you might end up liking a different one better. Or you might find somebody who says AnyType is even better than both of them. This will be Notion. Maybe that's Notion. So anyway, getting somebody to compare and contrast the two things, you'll go, I get it. This guy really hates Obsidian, which is fine. It's two guys. So let me type the list of knowledge managers. And these are replacing things like Evernote, and OneNote is still a good thing to use. Apple Notes is probably pretty good. There's a thing that pro and semi-pro writers use called Scalpel and Scrivener. Scrivener is like old school, and it's really old. It's a power tool. So if you compared Obsidian and Scrivener, that would be an interesting comparison. So then one more place to go. If I got her name right. I think this is a different person now that I think about it. Wrong person. The Obsidian Roundup is really good. I think she had a baby, and then she's kind of got distracted a little bit. But anything that Eleanor Connick writes about Obsidian is gold. For a long time, she was publishing weekly updates about everything that was going on with Obsidian, and that was awesome. I don't think she's doing that so much anymore, but you could actually probably go back to old issues, and that would still be great. Okay. Let me go off share for a sec and see who's here. I want to make sure this is a useful time for everybody. Let me adjust my white balance because it's getting to that time of night. I actually wanted to talk about the concept of programming computers, and especially doing it with kind of ChatGPT. So we'd learn two things if we talk about that. One of them is how to use ChatGPT to learn something. And another one would be a little bit about computer programming, which I think is going to be useful. We won't learn a lot about programming, but I can tell you the secret stuff that you need to learn that's useful, and the other stuff that you may be interested in, you may not be. Does anybody have anything else that they want to ask, or they would say, if they'll say, I'm allergic to computer programming, please don't teach me anything like that. But if you're interested in ChatGPT, I think we'll have an interesting hour with this. Anybody else? I haven't been following chat very well. Scott, I'm jealous of your Vision Pro. But
I do not
worry.
have one. I do not have one,
Oh.
Pete. They tried hard to sell it to me. If you go to the Apple store, they'll give you a free 30-minute demo where they make you sit there and they show you how the whole thing works. And that 30 minutes is all it took for me to be like, holy hell, doesn't make sense. I don't know how to even explain it. So if you get a chance, take the 30-minute demo and have your mind blown.
And leave your phone and your wallet at home so you don't end up walking out of the store with a Vision Pro. Thanks, Scott. I'm going to get into it since I don't hear anybody protesting. So let me share my screen again, and I'm going to, so I've been thinking about this for a couple of days, so I'm pretty excited about diving into it, and hopefully it'll be interesting. And if you have questions, put something in chat, and somebody go off mute and tell me what I'm missing and stuff like that. So it turns out, I guess what I want to show you is that ChatGPT is a really good way to learn things. And then I think a really good thing to learn is just a little bit of programming stuff, not a lot. So let's talk about learning stuff with ChatGPT. So you might have tried this, you might have not, but you can say things to ChatGPT like, teach me a little Spanish. And it's kind of funny to me that that I don't hear this use case learning stuff, not necessarily Spanish. I don't hear this a lot with ChatGPT, but this is one of the things that I think is most useful, because in the olden days, like a year or two ago, we had to, you had to go to a bookstore or go online, I guess, and find a book that was kind of the thing that you wanted to learn, except it wasn't really what you wanted to learn, and it had a bunch of stuff that the author thought would be a good way to learn what you wanted. So now, instead of that, we have this magic tool that you say, hi, I want to learn about blah, and it just starts going, right? Um, so it's like, maybe I'm interested in pronunciation or something. Maybe I'm interested in basic phrases, courtesy phrases. Maybe I like to count, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco, seis, that's great. Maybe I know a little bit more and I want to ask something like, I just asked this the other day. Uh, there's two words, derecho and derecha. It's kind of funny we have the same words more or less in English, but they're not spelled so closely. Um, my wife is learning Spanish, so I get it by osmosis. Derecho is like your rights, like human rights and stuff like that. It also means straight, go straight. And then dereche is the direction, right? So we use right for the same thing in English, but I guess I guess we don't have the O and the A. They're both spelled the same, which is even more confusing now that I think about it. Yeah, it did. I'm going to call it a typo and not a misspelling. So maybe you know that you can do that. I could also ask it, I want to learn accounting. What are the top 3 things I should know? And then, of course, as you're talking to it, the thing that's different between ChatGPT and reading a book is you get to start wherever you want to, and then you get to go wherever you want to. So it's like, oh yeah, double entry, I've heard of that. Financial statements, I've heard of that. Balance sheets, what's a balance sheet? What's the difference between a balance sheet? So I can ask that, right? Instead of like trying to read these 2 sentences and figure out, okay, well, I don't really get it. You can just freaking ask, right? I won't, because I don't want to take the time to do it. But so that's learning with ChatGPT, right? So we had an interesting question on Tuesday, and I wrote up a quick thing during the call, which since most of us are a little ADD, I hope that's not a weird thing to say. But somebody said, "Hey, I know enough to be dangerous with programming, and I don't know Python. How do what's the best way to learn Python?" And a year and a half ago, I would have said, or 2 years ago, I would have said, well, there's this book I know that's kind of okay. And, there's some practice projects you could use, but now it's like, ask ChatGPT. So Rebecca knows programming, but she doesn't know Python. So I wrote something which I thought was pretty clever. For what it's worth, I'm a software developer by trade, kind of, and I've started programming like a long time ago. So I kind of know that for learning any programming language, there's 2 things you need to know. One of them is general programming concepts, just like this is kind of like if you were learning how to fix a car. It's like, okay, you kind of need to know the basics, the engine, there's tires, there's a drivetrain, that kind of stuff. And then if you need to know how to fix a specific car, like a Toyota, then you learn, Toyota things versus, Lexus things or something like that. So there's the general stuff, there's engines and drivetrains and wheels. And then there's the specific stuff for a particular language like Python. Python has a certain way to do it that's different from Go, which is different from, Ruby, and so on and so forth. There are some actually classes of languages too. So Python and Perl are pretty close together. Python, Perl, and PHP are pretty close together. And they're kind of different from Java, for instance. And then Java and JavaScript sound the same, but they're actually completely different. So so then I kind of finished off this note with okay, Rebecca, since you know one, I'll tell you how to learn two. And here's how to start programming. And nowadays you can actually have Python write a script for you, and a lot of times it will just work. So since Tuesday, and having thought about this a little bit more, great question, Jared. And let's talk about the difference. Jared's wondering if he's got to use ChatGPT 4. And he knows that ChatGPT 4 maybe have more, well, anyway. Can you even use ChatGPT with it, the free version? I haven't done free ChatGPT for such a long time, I forget. You can do it for 3.5 for free, is that true? I'm gonna say something into that the difference between 3.5 and 4 is really dramatic. For certain things it doesn't matter actually at all. But for some things it matters a lot. For doing fancy language stuff, and then for one of the things is for programming stuff, it's not worth bothering with 3.5. So then I would predict that your question is, but Pete, ChatGPT Plus is freaking $20 a month, and I can spend $20 a month in lots of ways. ChatGPT Plus is maybe not the one that I would do. So then I think I wonder if I would say this to somebody who's not an AI salon, but I think I still would actually. The difference between 3.5 and 4 is such a big deal that you should figure out how to do 4. And it's not just up-to-date training information, actually. It's 4 is smarter. It's just smarter at stuff. It knows things better. It can answer questions better. It can understand you better, and then it can give you a more complicated answer. So 3.5 is fine for a lot of stuff, for like 60 or 70% of the stuff, and then 4 is what you need for others. So the hack that I suggest is I hear myself saying this in my head and it sounds scary, but it's not. The thing to do is to use GPT for the backend, the API version of it. So to do that, you need a front end, you need a program that talks to ChatGPT. And on the Mac, the one I use is MacGPT, I think it's called. And I don't use it because I use the web, but so there are free things like this. And there are for pay things like this. This one, I think, I don't know how much it costs right now. It's probably $20, $30. I don't know. I don't think I would buy it for that, although it might still be worth it. So what you do is you find a front end that talks to what's called the OpenAI API. I'm going to start a new section here. By the way, if you use the link in the chat, let me put the link in the chat again. I guess I didn't hit return on this. Let me hit return on that line. So that's the website for AI 101. And then this is the website for the notes right now. You don't have to log in if you get here. It might pop up a thing that looks like you need to log in. You don't. And then when you get here, you can just watch me type on this view up here. Or you can type on this view, or you can watch yourself type. This site is good for clicking links. This site is not so good for clicking links. It's good for editing links. And this site is good for clicking. So anyway, let's make a section for how to use ChatGPT for low cost. I think a common answer for this would be to use Copilot. Microsoft Copilot is a way to use GPT-4 for free. My guess is that Copilot, you'll bump into the top end of, like, it'll start, like, it doesn't want to talk to you for as long as, because it's free. It'll talk to you for a while and then it'll trail off. So I think it's worth going over to figure out how to use real ChatGPT for, well, I don't know. It's Copilot GPT-4 is the same as ChatGPT-4. But without limitation, I think it's worth it. So the way to use ChatGPT-4 for a low cost is to find a tool like Mac GPT, or the one, or Chap, or let me see what the status of this one is. I used to recommend Chatbot UI. He's changing his model around, and I can't recommend it right now because I don't know if it's good or not. But what's that?
Sorry, no, sorry. I had my microphone on by accident.
Sorry. We'll find a good Windows solution too. But I guess we won't do it right now. Anyway, you find a front end. You can probably find a decent one for free, or you can pay for one. And then you give it your OpenAI API key. Brandon?
Yeah, sorry. Was say get clarity around what Mac GPT is, and then I guess we could always ask ChatGPT what the Windows equivalent of Mac GPT is.
That's potentially not a great thing to be able to ask ChatGPT.
Okay.
Because it's a new thing, right? So with any AI model, the AI models are, their knowledge lags behind a little bit. And so let's try it. So I'm making sure that I've got ChatGPT. That's a Windows equivalent. It's not clear to me that it's not hallucinating here, actually.
It's like, just call it Windows GPT. It'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, I don't even know why you're asking me. It's really clear what. Let's do the Bard thing. Bard actually might have a better idea.
Gemini.
Windows equivalents, browser-based ChatGPT. I love this answer. It's so literal. um, wow.
Well, I like that it referenced the Windows 11 Bing integration.
Yeah, that's cute. And
a GitHub project for the desktop application. So Mac GPT is just basically a compiler.
it's a front end. I don't know if that
Okay.
means anything to anybody except developers. Um, let's draw a picture. The funny thing is I've kind of drawn the same picture before, but we'll use a tool called diagrams. Well, now it's called Draw.io. And since this is one of Pete's tools environment, I'm I'm using this because we don't have a whiteboard, because we're not in a physical room and we don't have a whiteboard. I would rather use a whiteboard, but this is okay for what we've got.
For future reference, Zoom also has a whiteboard.
Yeah, but the Zoom whiteboard doesn't work in Google Meet.
Gotcha. No, we're in Zoom.
Well, it was a snarky answer. I apologize.
Oh, I see what you, okay, gotcha.
I use diagrams.net everywhere. And it took me a little while to learn how to use it. But now I'm really good with it, and I use it for lots of stuff. So when I'm using tools, I try to use things that are free or low cost or open source, ideally, and then things that can be used in lots of different ways. And then there's some beautiful things about this particular tool. This tool is a lot like using Visio or OmniGraffle or something like that. One of the most amazing things about this tool is I happen to know on the web where a diagram is that I drew a while ago. So this is a diagram drawn with diagrams.net. And the cool thing is you can download this PNG file, which is an image file, and load it in this editor, and it turns back into the diagram. So you can actually move these things around like they're objects instead of like, this is smashed flat. I don't know if
I've
that
used
sounds amazing.
draw.io or diagrams.net before. I did not know about the upload feature. That's cool.
What you do is when you save it, there's a checkbox for, this is a bad demo. There's a checkbox for include something in the PNG file, include XML in the PNG file. I'm going to do something rude and just try to reload that. Okay, so pretend this is the server. Yikes, that was terrible. Pretend this is a server. No, that didn't do what I wanted. And the server, as you know, servers like to live in the cloud. If we could go back in time and, well, actually cloud, I was gonna say. So in the cloud, there's a server, right? And on your desk, there's a laptop. Look like this, I guess. And then on your laptop, you've got Windows. Not the operating system, the thing that you look at. This is a window. So what you want is something that has the text boxes in it and the answer, we'll call this the, it didn't work very well. We'll call this the user interface for, something like ChatGPT. So what you're looking for is just something that knows how to let you type in it. Lets you type a question, has enough coding logic to send it off to the cloud and to that particular server. And poof, you're done. So it talks back and forth to the back end. So if I go back to if I go back to where I'm talking to ChatGPT in my browser, there is actually this is actually a program that's running inside of Chrome that knows how to talk to the back end. That sounds more confusing or more complicated than I thought I meant it to be. But anyway, MacGPT is this, instead of running inside Chrome, it runs inside my Mac. And it knows how to talk to ChatGPT, or it knows how to talk to the OpenAI backend, the server.
Wait, is MacGPT something you built, or is it a commercially available program?
MacGPT is a commercially available program.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, that makes sense. Thank you.
I did actually write my own. It's not that hard. Let me show you how big it is. And it's not, it didn't end up, well, I don't know. It ended up being pretty cute, but not quite cute enough. I was literally thinking of, let's program a ChatGPT interface, in an hour. But I decided against it because it's called Sylph, which is a very cool name. ChatGPT helped me come up with it, actually. ChatGPT wrote most of this. And I know this is going to look like a bunch of gobbledygook kind of, but if you look at how much gobbledygook there is, there's not very much. The whole thing is 60 lines. So literally in 60 lines of code, you can write a front end for ChatGPT. And you can have ChatGPT write it for you. So there you go. It's kind of mind-blowing. If anybody ever, well, anyway, we could actually do that. Some AI thing. There's another thing that somebody wrote that runs in your terminal, that's called Chap, and this is actually a pretty decent. This is a pretty decent front end for ChatGPT. I know it looks like a terminal thing, but maybe this is a good example of a front end, a different front end. I think I have a weird thing with my enter key. So I don't know how to send that. Let me do it the other way around. Ask. So I know in some ways this looks massively different from the regular front end you're used to, but it wouldn't take long to get used to it looking like this instead of like that. Another reason to go through this rigmarole with the OpenAI API key is you can also do that in a third-party program like Obsidian. So I think I've got it installed here. You can tell Obsidian, so I've got a plugin installed in Obsidian that's a front end for Obsidian to talk to instead of to have a screen for me to talk to. I can highlight something and then say I want more of it just by clicking on this. This came from ChatGPT. It typed it into my text file, and it's a funny thing because I said anyway. That's not a good example of a thing that. Let's try a better one. Wikipedia is a. Click the magic button. Poof. I just had GPT write blah for me. And I didn't do it here and copy and paste it. I just did it in my tool. So life is wonderful. Um, uh, there's a part that I left out, which is how to get what an OpenAI API key is, and how to get it, and how much it costs. Let's cover the cost thing at least real quick. And the way I'm going to do that is going to go OpenAI pricing. I think this will be good. Language models. Okay, so there's a little bit of complexity here, because now all of a sudden you have not one GPT-4, but 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's probably more than that. And then you have to know what a token is. But and then yeah, you have to know what a token is. So let's write that down too. But you'll see that it's pretty cheap. It cost 1 cent for 1,000 tokens. Tokens are a little bit smaller than words. They have a relationship to words, and they're a little bit smaller than words. So you can kind of quickly do a quick estimate. I just asked it, and tokens count for what you ask it and for what it gives you back. So I gave it 2 words, and then it gave me back this many words, which ignore me while I open yet another interface to something. Pretend this is Obsidian. It's not quite, but it's very close. So that it gave me back 228 words. So 230 words total. So doing this work right here cost me about 1/4 cent, 1/4 penny. So that compares pretty, I mean, that's a lot better than, this would have cost me $20 if this was the only thing I asked ChatGPT. Plus, I got it for 0.25 cents, 0.23 cents. And so, even if I did 100 times of that, it'd be a couple bucks or something like that. I've used GPT-4 like this a fair bit, and your bill comes out to a few bucks. And I think it's totally worth it. I can go into, depending on who cares, I can go into more about what a token is, what an API key is, how to get an API key. I guess we can do that real quick here. Yes.
So this is a really cool and highly inexpensive way to access ChatGPT-4. Is there any, one of the coolest things for me is the app. So I pay for the subscription and I get the app, which is, for me, is awesome, because it's
the app on your phone.
Yeah. I can talk to it and it talks back to me.
Can't be
So none of that, something like that does not exist using the API elsewhere. Like there's not do you know of a third party that's doing that lets you use your API access?
Particularly on a phone? Offhand, I don't. That's a great question.
Fair enough. Thank you.
It would be only moderately complicated to kind of hack together something that kind of did that. Depending on how motivated you are, and
Can ChatGPT talk me through it?
Yeah, pretty much. So mobile app development is like a big deal. It's not easy. And then your phone may or may not have voice recognition. Mine actually has really good voice recognition, and the native voice recognition is better than OpenAI, actually. I'm on a Google Pixel. So a quick and dirty way to do that would be to run, you could actually run CHAP on an internet server for a few bucks a month. And then you could access that on your phone. It's a pretty hacky way to do it, but you learn a lot in setting it up. I don't know. So it's doable. It wouldn't be anywhere near as convenient. It would be kind of a science project and a really interesting one and not that hard kind of, but it would be not very pretty. Somebody should, one or the other, somebody should check that out on the app stores and say, hey, there is a thing where you can do. I would be kind of surprised if there isn't an Android one. I would be kind of surprised. Well, I don't know. There might be an Apple one too. Let's not figure out how to answer that question now, even though it's a very interesting one.
Are we going to end it? Are we going to end at the
I'm gonna be here until the top of the hour, actually.
Okay.
All right.
If
I got you.
if anybody wants to know more about well, ask in the channel, or ask them. But if not, I'll get back to talking about learning stuff and learning computer programming stuff from ChatGPT. And it's tempting for me to do that in Mac GPT or even Chap, but it would just be a little bit distracting because I'm probably not quite as good at it. So let's keep going. By the way, another cool thing that you can do with, well, I don't know, once you're talking to the OpenAI API, well, no. There's lots of things that OpenAI API key, you end up putting it into different things. There's another one that I found recently where it was like, hey, if you put in your API key, I can do, more cool stuff. Kind of like Obsidian, the Obsidian plugin. Anyway, let's get back to ChatGPT and learn a little bit about programming. And my entree to that is that very clever thing I put. Let's copy and paste this into the HackMD, because I said there was learning computer concepts. So if I were you, I would say, Pete, I love you dearly, but I don't know why I care about computer programming, because other people do that for me, and I'm totally happy with that situation. So I think that's a pretty good take on it, actually. But let me tell you a thing that I figured out here. There's a 0 to this, which I forgot about, which I was thinking that this would cover, general programming concepts. There's a 0 thing here called computational thinking, and this turns out to be useful for everybody and an amazingly wonderful and important thing, even if you don't care at all about computers. So I kind of wish it wasn't called computational thinking, because it's kind of well, it's more general than that. But there's a thing that you have to learn as a programmer. And in the olden days, they didn't teach computational thinking. So I didn't know to ask about it because I learned to program computers a long, long time ago. So when I was learning how to do computers, this was the thing they taught. Okay, we're going to teach you some general programming concepts, then we're going to teach you some syntax, and then we'll start writing programs. That's how I learned back in the day. In 2006, a smart computer scientist said, "Hey, you know there's a thing that we teach in the curriculum, but it doesn't have a separate name." So she called it computational thinking. Her name is Jeanette Wing. And I just learned this today, by the way. So in 2006, she said, you know, I think lots of people we should put this into more general curriculums. And more people should learn this way that software developers learn to figure stuff out. And the computational thinking comes from having to explain something complicated to a really dumb machine, a computer. So you learn the skills of breaking down a problem into the guts of it, and then walking the computer through how to help, you know, do that thing. So since we have our good friend ChatGPT, let's ask ChatGPT, what's computational thinking? So there, if you kind of think back of, you know, my walking into how to learn something with ChatGPT, it's like, oh, I want to learn Spanish or French, or, you know, I want to learn accounting or political science or something like that. You actually know what to ask. So, so it took me a little while as a computer programmer. It took me a little while, and actually somebody who grew up with some of the stuff before computational thinking. I actually started with an old time computer scientist who started the idea of computational thinking, but he didn't encapsulate it as well as Jeanette Wing did. So I don't know how to, I don't yet know how to know the magic word to learn the thing that you really want to learn. But anyway, the magic word here is computational thinking. So let's ask ChatGPT what it is. Hey, ChatGPT, what is computational thinking? So, inspired by Rebecca's question about computer programming, what I really wanted to help people know about is this computational thinking. And I think you probably have learned how to do this in your life, but knowing that somebody made a name of it and then thought about it some and wrote it down and you know, stuff, I think being a little bit more familiar with what's going on as you solve problems might help you solve problems better, and especially problems that you don't know how to solve already. So it's not very complicated. And I guess I'm still learning about, you know, when somebody called it computational thinking, Jeanette Wing, you know, I think she wrote a book on it actually. Anyway, I'm still learning a little bit about it. If you're interested, I think you should be, you should ask ChatGPT the same question. Let's do another thing, because this doesn't really tell me a lot of stuff. I'm like, can you give me an example? And again, one of the things I'm trying to show you is how to learn something with ChatGPT. And then I'm also trying to introduce you to this cool subject. So we're doing kind of two things at once. So, you know, in the olden days, it's like, okay, well, great, thanks, book. You know, you told me a bunch of words and this doesn't really mean anything to me. So that didn't really help me as much as you thought it would, Ms. Author, you know. But since we've got this smart bot, I can say, can you give me an example? So it's like, oh, okay, this is cool. Planning a large community event like a cultural festival. That's great. So you do this thing called decomposition. So you break it down into smaller chunks and you go, yep, need to select a venue. Yep, need to schedule, et cetera, et cetera. And then I'm going to scroll back up a little bit and look at this summary of what pattern recognition is. Look for similarities, patterns, or trends. So you kind of like get the things that are similar. Oops, pattern. I don't think this is actually a good example of this. So I've got a better example from asking it earlier today. We'll go look at that real quick. But so anyway, this is a way of going, I can imagine what planning a cultural festival is like, and then I can apply this approach of computational thinking through these steps, and this is what it would look like. So it makes it more real for me. And then I can do something like, maybe I don't know about cultural festivals, but make an example of planning Thanksgiving dinner. So in a way, I don't know if this is the best example of something that's different from culture. Well, maybe it is, I don't know. I could have said, fixing a car, or riding a bike or something like that. Or something that we find in AI Salon, that maybe you've done yourself. I'm going to pull up AI Salon show and tell here. And I think this would be okay to do with other people's images, but I'm going to use my image and then think about whether or not it's appropriate to use it with other people's images. So I've got this one here. If I make this big and save it to my computer, what I'm going to do is go over to ChatGPT. Maybe in here I've been talking about, so one of the things to do with ChatGPT is start a new conversation when you're talking about a new thing. So you'll notice I had learned Spanish basics was one conversation, learning accounting was another one, Windows GPT solutions is another one. I'm still interested in using this thing for computational thinking, but I got it to give me some examples, and I'm kind of worried that the examples, where I'm going with this is, I wonder how Pete made this image, and maybe I could apply computational thinking to breaking down, how I would make an image like this. So let's try that. And I don't want to get it confused with Thanksgiving dinners and cultural events. So I'm going to start a new one. Maybe I'll copy this phrase though. A lot of times when I give ChatGPT something like a passage that I need help with or an image, a lot of times what I do is I say, consider the attached image. So then we're both on the same page that I want to know about this image. So now I can say, apply computational thinking to creating an image similar to this with Dolly. I'm gonna pick Dolly because is built into ChatGPT. When you're using a different front end, it's not automatically going to be built in. So we'll have to come back to that at some point. So let's try that. So now you can see that I'm using this computational thinking idea, even though I don't understand it very well. Maybe those other examples were useful for me, maybe they're not. Let's try something completely different. I've been wanting to, I've noticed this image. I'm interested in it. And by the way, you could use any of my images for this kind of thing if you want. I think I would think about whether or not I would do it with one of Danielle's images or something like that. Okay, so here is a total fail on the team that is Pete and ChatGPT, because what I was hoping for was a great explanation of applying computational thinking to. So what happened here is because they thought it would be super cool if DALL-E was built into ChatGPT, if you get anywhere close to getting it to think about an image, it's going to make an image for you instead of telling you something. So this is interesting. It's landscapes and it's a triptych, except it's not really a triptych. It's 4 instead of 3. As you may know, or maybe not, if you click on this to get it big and then click on that information icon, you get to see the so this is just a prompt to DALL-E, which is great, but it doesn't tell me anything about the computational thinking of it. So I can do 2 things. I can say, no, I wanted you to explain it without making an image. I don't feel like I'm so far in this conversation that I would rather just copy and paste this to a new conversation. So there's a judgment call in there whether or not you want to start over again or not. For this one, I think I want to start over, but this time I'll remember to say, do not create an image. So looking back at this and giving ChatGPT a little bit of a break, it's partly its fault, partly my fault. I should have said maybe something, explain how you would apply computational thinking, or how I would apply computational thinking to creating an image similar to this. I didn't use quite enough words there. I can see where it could have gotten confused. So next time I'll try to be a little bit more careful. So this is great. It broke it down and stuff. It didn't help me with these step things. And I kind of really want to learn these step things. So so let me tell it to expand that answer. Could you rearrange that answer to show the components of, well, each part, each phase, maybe each phase of computational thinking. So again, back in the olden days, if I was reading a book, you kind of get what you take and you try to figure your way through it. In ChatGPT days, you keep asking it, I'm confused. I didn't like the answer. I don't know what you're talking about. I need more this. I need more that. You keep asking. So I didn't tell it the 4 key stages of computational thinking. And I was really tempted to copy and paste it over, but it had it was kind of like big and clunky. So just this was enough for it to get the idea of what I was really looking for. So now this is an answer I'm pretty happy with. And now it's getting down into interesting parts, right? So Pete's image here has got the 3 panels. So that's one thing to notice. There's a color theme going on here, warm, warm and cool and cool. It picked that up. It picked up the fact that there's natural scenes in each. It picked up that it's expressive and semi-abstract, and it's got a mood lighting thing going on for each of them. So a lot of this was actually consciously part of what I was doing, interestingly enough. So I specifically arranged it this way to have the warm color and the mixed colors and the cool color. So its decomposition kind of matched my building of the thing, which is really interesting to see. And then a reason to, so now let's think a little bit about, instead of the process of learning with ChatGPT, let's think a little bit about the process of computational thinking. Terrible name. I wish computational wasn't in there. Breaking it down like this, instead of going, oh my gosh, how am I going to, like, you can tell right away that there's 3 things going on, and you can tell that maybe it's a nature thing. But keeping that in mind while also thinking about the color themes and also thinking about the art style, it gets to be a lot of stuff that you're trying to keep in mind all at once. So if you break down and think about each thing separately and then write that down, this is a great place where I would use Obsidian if I were doing this, by myself. I would say, well, one of the things that I see about this, I would decompose this. One of the things I see is it's 3 panels, so I'd write that down. One of them is it's got a color theme thing going on here, and I would write that down. It's kind of cool that ChatGPT did that for me, but I would do the same thing, if I were just a person. I don't know how to explain pattern recognition really well. I know what it's meaning there, but I don't know how to explain it well enough to dig into it. And then same thing with abstraction. I think these are good steps, and it would take me a while to go over this with different examples to really get how to explain this to somebody else. So let me recap and talk about what we learned and why I'm so excited about what I called computer programming at the beginning. And it turns out that the interesting part isn't computer programming at all. I mean, it's related to computer programming, but it's not exactly computer programming. Down here. So it turns out that these steps, this computational thinking thing, is something that software developers have been learning for as long as I've been learning software development, but we didn't have a separate way of referring to it. And we didn't really get taught everybody learned how to do these steps by themselves, but without being taught it. So having Jeanette come along and say, hey, software developers have been doing this for a long time, but we haven't been teaching that. We've been teaching, the stuff that actually what happened was they would teach these things first, which was confusing as heck. And then you'd have to learn this part on your own. So if you kind of do it the other way around, if you learn this, you may never even get to this part, which is great because, there's a bunch of other people doing computer programming, but this part is the gold. This part is really awesome. And it helps you do lots of stuff. And it helps you do things like, fix a car or plan a cultural event or decide how you're going to make an image. So that's why I'm so excited about it. That probably is a good place to pause a little bit and let us breathe. I My nature would be to go, okay, now let's learn some programming, but maybe this is a good place to pause at least and chat or talk or recap or something like that. Julia.
Yeah, so last week we were talking about like we went over going and opening a GitHub account, and I've been going over all of this material and I find it really fascinating, and I'm taking it up. It's overwhelming, but I'm taking it up at the same time. And I'm just looking for advice because ChatGPT can do all of these skills. It can do everything that I require from like perhaps going back to school, you know, and I'm kind of thinking I would really like to get farther into it because I see no end to the interest in terms of like my perspective. Do you think that it's better to just sort of like have the GitHub account and put all of my work in there and just sort of like build from there rather than even going back to school? Because I feel like um, learning programming languages, like grasping them is one thing, but is there really at this point a need to learn programming languages like Python beyond being sort of familiar with what they do at a sort of basic level? Like, would that be is that feasible to just have a GitHub account and put all of your work in there and try all sorts of different things and sort of see where it takes you? Like, does that
Learning in progress.
help?
Keep going. That was
But
crosstalk.
do you understand what I mean? Like, I just
I
kind of
do,
feel
yeah.
like it's almost the same thing as going back to school and learning a new skill. Like, how is it that relevant that you could and not applicable, sort of having all of your work in a GitHub account and or that widely known that it would um, sort of serve as in a sense like a complete portfolio. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the funny thing is, I'm going to share my screen again. In the Well, let me give you a couple quick answers. So one of the reasons to go to school is to learn stuff. Another reason is to get an accreditation that other people will respect. So if you needed to get hired someplace and you went in and you said, well, here's my resume and here's my GitHub, and they look at your resume and it's like kind of zip, and your GitHub is amazing, you might or might not get hired depending on who you're trying to get hired into, right? So right off, one of the reasons to go to school is to get the accreditation that you need to, impress a hiring manager, basically. If that's not a problem, then you can go maybe to the next step and say, another reason to go to a school or at least a coding boot camp or something like that, is um, because it'll be external motivation for you to learn the things that you need to learn, right? You'll be on somebody else's learning, somebody else will have developed a learning path for you, and they'll say these are the things I think you need to know before before I will accredit you. Or maybe it's a set of teachers or whatever. But as you do homework, day by day, week by week, they're stepping you through a process which you may or may not push yourself through, if you were just self-motivated. So school is a way to continue to be motivated to learn into the path that you're going for. So two great reasons to keep going to school is because you need a degree or the accreditation or whatever, and you need some external push to keep going. If you can get around those two things, then I think it's not unreasonable to you'll learn. I think it's a good question. Um, you know, you'll end up in a problem where it's like, well, I don't know what I need to, I don't know what to ask ChatGPT to learn about what I need to learn, kind of,
Yeah, that's fair. That's yeah.
So even that you can, well, so a thing that I would do, RJ might pick Pi instead of ChatGPT, but I don't know Pi very well. But so your question is a great ChatGPT question, right? Uh, let me bring up speech notes so we can type this faster. I'm thinking of doing self-study with ChatGPT rather than going to school. Can you give me the pros and cons of each path? Question mark. And this is kind of another example of, hey, ChatGPT, help me learn something or help me think through something is maybe more what this is. But this is a great thing to do with ChatGPT. Compare two things, and so I didn't talk about the pros, but there you go, right there, bang. So it gave you the same advice that I gave you, except that it also included this, which I would have thought about maybe. My kids were homeschooled, so this was a question I always got about my kids. Don't they get social interaction? Turns out homeschool kids, at least my kids, got more social interaction, better social interaction at home than at school. I didn't talk about the pros of using ChatGPT very much, but and then you can keep asking it questions more, right? Dig into one side or dig into the other side or make a table or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then a different part of your question was, can I just put up all my projects in GitHub? And that wouldn't be a path that I would take right away, actually. The right away thing that I would do is I would, so the right away I would organize myself with Obsidian, surprise, surprise. I would organize my Obsidian would turn into my school notebook, kind of. And I would keep track of, you can kind of think of this like blogging, personal blogging or something like that. So literally I would do something kind of like this, except I'll show you a shortcut in a sec.
Sorry to interrupt, but you would use Obsidian as your sort of like
as my school notebook, my binder. So this is a little bit like if I went to it, you don't have to structure yourself exactly like school, but an activity that you do in school and an activity that you do at work, in scientific labs they do it religiously, and then in like product development labs they kind of do it, and then in most work it gets done informally. But people who are at work keep a log, a journal of what they're learning, what they're doing, so that when you need to do it again in 2 weeks, or you kind of need to go over and do something better in 2 months, you have notes on the whole thing. So that's really important for your personal development and for your work stuff. I, as far as I know, I used to, I used to have a company that made something similar to Obsidian, actually. It was a wiki for business, and it was a web version. It wasn't a software version, but same thing, you know, as you do work. So I guess every time we went to talk to a new customer, they had everybody would keep a Microsoft Word document open, and they would type things. They would copy and paste, you know, notes themselves and to do things, and you know, stuff you looked up on the web, if we even have the web back then. You would make this notes thing, and the people who are more organized would organize that better, and they would have sections and stuff like that. Then if you have the ability to use multiple files for different things, you're golden, right? So nowadays, that's Obsidian or Notion or OneNote, or used to be Evernote. Wasn't that great at that. It was part of that, but not the whole thing. Anyway, I would keep a page like this for like, I have a bit of a scientific background, so we used to keep lab notes, right? Um, so I would copy and paste this, and then I would say some, you know, I would write a little bit about it, and then I would also copy and paste stuff in, and then, you know, over the course of a week, I would have week of whatever this was, 15, 14, 13, 12. I would have a list of pages, very similar to a somehow that, oh, I'm doing too many things at once.
Notebook. I'm familiar.
Okay, well, now I got myself totally lost, but here you go. So with Obsidian, it lets you make a link to each file by the file name. So then in here, I would say something like make a page called computational thinking, and you can make an index for yourself like this, or a table of contents or something like that on the fly. So this page, this file doesn't exist yet, but by just making a link to it, now I can make it, you know, now remember my trick.
By the way, it's the top of the hour in case you have another.
Yeah, thanks. I don't have a
Yeah.
hard stop. I should get going to dinner actually, but there's a couple different things. Let's see. Why didn't that work? I'm expecting to see a link. Yeah, here it is here. I was clicking too fast. Obsidian will help you organize stuff. If you make a link in one direction, it keeps track of those links in the other direction. So every time I link to this new page on computational thinking, which looks misspelled, computational. Julia.
Yeah. So is it the reason that you would store all of the notes in Obsidian and not GitHub because GitHub is so open to everybody? Is that why?
Not necessarily. I mean, I would probably end up taking private notes that I probably wouldn't. So actually, good guess, but no. GitHub, you can make private repos, no problem. GitHub is for sharing software. So this is my lab notebook. It turns out that, and this will be another topic for some other AI 101 or something, it turns out that my Obsidian vaults, they're called. I actually do copy them up to GitHub. Um, so so I guess that was kind of a bit of a sleight of hand. It's like, don't use GitHub, use Obsidian. You want to center it. The work you do, you want to center on your computer and your files. You can back it up to GitHub, maybe into a private repo. Maybe you'll have two, you'll have a public and a private one. The thing that you want to show other people on GitHub is mostly, if you're a developer, it's mostly your code. So let me go to my profile. And I could probably do a better job of organizing these, but you can see that this is a thing that I wrote, Obsidian Settings Manager. This is the thing I wrote. This is the thing I wrote. This is the thing where I took it and a totally normal thing to do on GitHub is to take somebody else's repo and make changes to it. So GitHub is not so much for sharing text things, even though a lot of my repos here, like the website for AI 101 is up on GitHub. I have my private notebook, and that's a private GitHub repo. So I actually do use GitHub to back up all my Obsidian stuff. And then that lets me also use it in different computers on my phone.
Okay.
So GitHub is part of it, but it's not where you would start.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, folks. Thanks for sticking with me. Thanks for viewing this on the recording. Let me know in the channel what to cover from here forward. If there's stuff that we should pick up and keep going, ask questions in the channel. And thanks for being here.
Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Pete.
Take care.
You too. Thank you.
See you Saturday Saturday morning if you're going to show up for that.
Yep,
Cheers.
will do. Thank you.